All right, let's talk about Angular. So Angular is a front-end framework, right, that allows you to implement single-page applications. It uses the programming language TypeScript. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript, just like C++ is a superset of C. Right? It's every JavaScript program is already a TypeScript program, right? And it just adds additional syntax that allows you to, as the name suggests, use types so that you can do strong typing. Right? So you can declare variables as strings, dates, numbers, and whatnot. All right, so that you can use all the good stuff that come with strong typing. Right? You can do a lot of the testing and validation of your code early on, right, at the development stage as opposed to at the run stage. So we'll be using TypeScript for the rest of the semester. And Angular was developed by the Angular team at Google, and it enjoyed a lot of success, a lot of popularity up until they switched from version 1 to version 2. I think they did a strategic blunder by making their version 2 so drastically different from their version 1. So businesses that had put a lot of effort, a lot of investment into applications that were written in version 1, they had no easy path to migrate their application to version 2. So they were faced with a decision to rewrite all their code, most of their code, or perhaps even explore new frameworks, right? And this kind of gave an opening for other frameworks, competing frameworks such as React.js, Vue, and other single-page applications to thrive and take advantage of this opening in the market. And a lot of folks, a lot of developers, started exploring other frameworks, and you could see how the React community took advantage of that and really took off in popularity. But still, Angular and React are still the two more popular frameworks out there in the industry. Vue.js is also becoming very, very popular as well. Now Angular itself has a much steeper learning curve than React does. Right? It's much more extensive. It's much more comprehensive. It has a lot of many more things, moving parts. Okay? And so it's a challenge, to start discussing single-page application development with Angular, and that's why I did not cover Angular at first. Instead, I covered React. React has a much shallower learning curve. Also, that certainly helped in the popularity of that framework against Angular. But since we have already learned a lot of the concepts about what is a component, it's a single-page application, what we mean by routing from one page to another page, reusable components that can be built on top of other components. How do you integrate these components with third-party APIs or with your own web APIs? So we already know all these concepts, so we don't need to relearn any of that, right? And all those concepts translate very well into Angular or any other component-based web framework that you might explore, right? So Angular still uses the same ideas of single-page application. We have routing, we have components, and so a lot of those concepts we don't have to relearn them. So hopefully my expectation is that the steep learning curve, that if you start from zero, from scratch, now because we have already gone through a React.js, the learning curve for Angular should be much shallower, right? So should be much easier to do a lot of translation and say, well, you already know what this is in React. This translates this in this particular way in Angular, right? The syntax will be different, right? The mechanics and the plumbing might be different, but the concepts are the same, right? So hopefully my intent is that you'll find Angular to be much easier to understand than otherwise if we would have started with Angular at first. Okay. So to get started with Angular, you need to have Node.js installed, which you already do, right? Since React uses Node.js, you'll have to install the Angular command line interface. This is kind of the equivalent of installing Create React App command line in React, right? You do an npm install. Same thing with Angular. You do npm install Angular CLI. -G means global, right? So that the command becomes globally available at the command line. Once you do that, this installs. Once you do that, it installs a brand new command, a command called ng for Angular, and then from using ng, you can create all sorts of things. One of the things that you'll be able to create are new applications, new Angular applications. You can say ng and then new allows you to create a new application. So you can say ng new hello world. And this is, again, it's equivalent to say React, create React app and then the application you want to build. This will create a template application already compiled, already ready to go, ready to run, right? And it'll create it inside of a folder. If you go into that folder, you can then start the application by using ng-serve. ng-serve is the equivalent of npm start. And actually, that's what it does behind the scenes. It does an npm start, right? It starts the Node server, right, which is hosting your client application. Okay. The -- open is so that it will open up a browser, right, already pointing to the application. The application will be running on our local machine on port 4200, as opposed to React applications by default run on port 3000. Angular applications run on 4200 by default. Okay. So let's get started. Let's actually do this. I've obviously already installed the ng Angular command line interface. I'm going to create an application using the ng command. It's going to be a client application, so I'm going to say ng new, and I'm going to use webdev gen_nunz. It's a client application, but it's not React, right? It's an Angular application. Angular. Right? So that's going to take a bit. It's going to ask me a couple things. Do I want routing? Right. So the routing is the equivalent, right? The Angular routing is the equivalent of React router DOM, right? That allows you to specify which URLs map to what component. Same thing here, right? But the only difference is that the React router DOM, right, is a separate library, separate from React. Instead, the routing library here in Angular is part of the Angular core, right? But it's asking you, do you want me to install it or not? I'm going to say yes. Also, it's asking me what kind of styling libraries do I want to use. Do I want to use dynamic styling, CSS, Sass, or less? I'm just going to stick with the default, just plain old CSS. So that's going to download and copy from a template application, and I'm going to create a directory with the name of the application that I chose, and then we'll be able to install it. We'll be able to run it by going into that directory. Yes? No?